That being said, let's see if we want to move on. Any other questions? Okay, so we'll move on to 1.3. And this is all about the graph of a function. And this is not that much I'm going to do here, because we have two technologies. You can do it by hand, but luckily, we have been blessed with the technology to allow us to quickly see what these algebraic expressions look like. In the past, you didn't know what something like this might look like. Say, x to the fourth minus 2x cubed plus 4x squared plus 3x minus 1. Years ago, not too many in fact, you'd have to spend a lot of time setting up a little table of values and go through, plug in an x, pick an x, calculate a y, and get a series of ordered pairs that you would then put on a graph paper. And that would take an extended period of time. But since that time, we've had a couple of technologies that allow us to visually see this very easily. And the two technologies we're going to look at, one is our TI-84 or any other version calculator. Now this is something you'll be using on a test, but we also have a number of other things. There's also, this Desmos online calculator. .com, I think, .com calculator. And there's also, well, I'm not going to be looking at, there's another one called GeoGebra. Kind of like algebra, but GeoGebra. I'm not going to be doing that one too much. It's a good one as well. I'm going to be focusing mainly on the Desmos and the other. And what this is, it provides us an ability to find out what the graph of this function. We know it's a function because I'm solved uniquely for y, so that is a function. So this would definitely pass the vertical line test, but it allows us to do it very quickly and easily. Now the TI, I'm going to show you both of them very quickly. The homework is just to make sure you're comfortable. When you actually take a test, you will not be able to use Desmos. Hopefully when we eventually come back to doing face-to-face, I'm going to allow students to use their smartphones, because there's an app where you can bring down your Desmos right to your smartphone. And I'll be having students use apps in classes to help them analyze these functions using this technology. That's the good part about this. Technology enables us to do. The bad part about this is you lose the algebraic and arithmetic calculation skills. Meaning, if all that work is done for you, you get very rusty at doing calculations. And you need to be able to do them and do them effectively and efficiently to learn the mathematics, because it's a lot of hands-on work. So that's the downside of technology. It does all the work for you. That work reinforces the arithmetic and the algebra that you need to understand how everything comes together. So you should always try and do some of the, not these complicated, but some of the simple ones. Do the algebra, make sure you understand what the notation is and how to evaluate those. Especially in cases when you start putting in negative quantities over here, and what happens when you square them or raise them to the fourth power. Some students get messed up there. Okay, so that being said, let's just take a quick look at the two technologies, and maybe in both cases we'll graph those, just to make sure everyone's comfortable doing that. I'll share my screen. We'll start with the TI. There's information in the textbook as well, using the TI calculator, so you can kind of review that, the various buttons. Where it's a little bit more difficult on the TI calculator is like finding the different things. Find different things where they are, and that becomes a little more problematic. So over here, let's pull it over here. This is an emulator for the TI calculator. I'll just turn it on, and you get something like this. Typically, you might not be in the graphing mode. You might turn it on, and you might see it in this mode. And say I want to graph that function that I just wrote on the whiteboard. Well, then I go right up to the y equals and just plug it in. And I'm going to put in the x variable here. This little caret tells me to raise that to whatever power, and I'm using that to the fourth power. And then I have to move it down. If I continue, it kind of keeps it up there. If I don't use the arrow and move it over, it'll mess me up. Now, you have two different symbols here. This is subtraction over here, between the multiplication above it and addition underneath it. This little parentheses around that negative symbol is change sign of. It's kind of like a noun sort of thing, not quite. It does give you some incorrect answers, but you can't use this when you need that, and vice versa. I'll briefly show that. So this is a subtraction operator there, so I'll do that times 2x cubed to x cubed. Again, I have to bring my cursor down so that I can add 4x squared to that, plus 4x. Now I could use a caret, or there is a square operator, so let me just use the square operator. Just saves a step over there, plus 3x minus 1, so subtracting 1. And I can hit the graph button over here and get a graph of that. Sometimes you'll see it on the graph, sometimes you won't see it that effectively. There it comes. Now in this case, you don't see much of the function. This is where the TI is a little bit harder. We have to reset our windows to kind of see what's really happening, and that's the hard part of this. So let's say I go out from, let's just kind of zoom. We'll go to zoom, and we'll try. I don't usually use these options too often because they're a little bit crazier to deal with. Okay, so it's zooming out from there. And you can see, I definitely prefer the other option. You see, even there, it still doesn't give me everything I'd like to see. So it looks like it may be doing that, although I'm a little bit surprised because it has a lot here at the origin. Got a feeling it might be way out here. Let's go to and switch over now to Desmos. This is why I like it. It's a much more powerful tool, and it kind of does things more effectively. Put the same thing in over here. Now I'm going to do most of the things by hand, but there is a keyboard over here if you want to get the operators and the functions. It's very, very powerful. You can look at trigs, statistics, some miscellaneous things. It's got all these different things on there that have lots of capabilities. But I'll just take that off because I can do all of this by simply using that caret operator. So I do X, and then I do the Shift 6 key, and that'll bring me up to the top again, and then I'm going to do minus 2x cubed plus 4x squared plus 3x minus 1. So in this case, it does look like it, it's not going down. It looks like it might have maybe just the way I chose these. I just made it up randomly. It actually looks like that. Huh? Yep. So I can zoom out just by putting my mouse on and scrolling it. And I see it doesn't really come down, so it's got this, most of the information that we need is right in here. So that means this thing would actually factor in a way. Okay, but that capability and as well as TI calculator. The benefit of the TI, the Desmos, is this way to just function but relation. So for example, I had say y squared allows us to use your calculator. to the pictures. Okay, so that's all I really wanted to, as far as graphing. Just take a look at some of those things and make sure you're comfortable. So that, anybody that has any questions on that? Back to this. So some people have their video and audio freedom. It's a case-by-case basis. That's why we're not quite up to being ready to do everything real-time online. It all depends upon your internet connection. So that's another problem right there, depending upon what your internet connection is. What I'm going to do is, try and look at, there's different ways, NTSC and PAL. I may switch over to trying to see if I can set this up as a PAL transfer. It doesn't give as many frames per second, but it might work better. So I'll try that tomorrow. If it's really bad, this is being recorded. I think it should be okay. I can't really tell until I actually view it. But you can also try by logging out and coming back in, and that might improve your audio and your video. It depends upon what's happening with internet connections. It kind of buffers and kind of doesn't provide the full bandwidth. And that's why we're not quite 100% ready to go online. The bandwidth may not be there for everybody. In the not too distant future, we will be. This is probably enabling it to do it now. It's all dependent upon the internet connection, etc. Okay, that's all I want in 1.3. There's some problems to look at. Practice with your TI, inserting those functions. Now you may notice on one of the problems there's y is equal to the absolute value of x minus 3. Well, where is the absolute value for that? Well, in the TI, you have to look under the math key. Click on that, and then on the math key, there's a subtext. Look under number, and it's the first option on math/number, which is absolute value, and it'll bring up those two straight lines. That's the hard part. Now, if you're using Desmos, you can just type in y is absolute value and put in parentheses x minus 3, and it will come up. There's not a lot of searching you have to do, and you can see the function menu option is there as well. Okay, so that's all I wanted to do.